So the chapter 5 video that I'm going to record, again, I'm going to go over just a little summary. I'm going to kind of hit on some of the slides from this chapter. And just like chapter 4, it's all about cells. So chapter 4 really focused on those prokaryotic cells, the very simple cells that the bacteria that we talk about in this class have. The eukaryotic cells, because some of the microbes we talk about this semester do have eukaryotic cells, so we're going to talk about those as well. This should be a little bit of review, though, because humans have eukaryotic cells. Anything you talked about A&P, any biology class you've ever taken, and you've studied cells, they have all been eukaryotic cells. So, should be some review. So, go over some of the hot topics. A lot of the organelles is what we're going to review over. I'm going to start just where it talks about the eukaryotic cell. I'll make it big. So the eukaryotic cell, it still has external structures like prokaryotic cells. There's still some type of boundary. There's still organelles inside of there. One external structure that they can have is a glycocalyx. Now, they don't have, although some of eukaryotic cells can have capsules and some can kind of make a slimy layer, not as organized as prokaryotic cells. And they're not there for all of the same specific reasons that prokaryotic cells might have them. Some eukaryotic cells have cell walls. Yours don't, but plants do in their eukaryotic cells. But all eukaryotic cells do have some type of cell membrane, a cytoplasmic membrane, that phospholipid bilayer. Other organelles that we do find in the eukaryotic cell, and some of these, yes, you'll notice that these were missing from prokaryotic cells. Not all, but there's still some type of cytoplasmic matrix on the inside. Eukaryotic cells do have a nucleus. There are various organelles found inside of there. They have different kinds of organelles that are used to help them move. They have ribosomes. They have cytoskeletons. And we're going to talk about some other ones as well, one of them being a nucleus. Now, prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus. That mainly is because the nucleus does have an outer envelope. That's made up of a phospholipid bilayer. Anything that has a phospholipid bilayer on the outside is way too complicated of an organelle for a simple prokaryotic cell. Not only does the nucleus have an outer membrane, it has an internal, almost like an organelle inside of an organelle, because it has the nucleolus. And that's where we find the chromosomes, your 46 chromosomes. However, different eukaryotic cells have different numbers of chromosomes. Other organelles is we've got the endoplasmic reticulum, whether it's the smooth ER or the rough ER. We've got the Golgi apparatus. We've got the mitochondria. I don't know why that's their choice. Some eukaryotic cells have chloroplasts. Our cells don't, but plants do. Some cells have flagella, not all. Some cells have cilia, not all. They do have cytoskeletons made up of microtubules and filaments to help them with cell division, help organelles move around. Now, again, not all cells have a flagella, but some do. And their main purpose is to move the cell. Now, the internal structure, again, is different between a prokaryotic flagella and a eukaryotic flagella. Function is the same, move the cell. So I'm like, this is just to show what the inside looks like. It has these cool little arranged microtubules. And they whip back and forth in a little snake-like pattern, whereas bacteria move around in more of like a propeller motion. Some eukaryotic cells have cilia. I like to compare them looks-wise, like the fimbriae, but they're different. And I'm like, their job is for moving the cell, moving things across the cell. Some eukaryotic cells use them for feeding. They can use the cilia to move food, especially in a watery environment, towards them. Some use it for filtering. Our cells in the human body use cilia to move things across the cell, like in our respiratory tract. So this is showing just the cilia. Some single-celled eukaryotic organisms are covered in cilia, but they just sit there and beat back and forth. Our cells can have a glycocalyx. The word glyco means sugar. We have sugars or carbohydrates found on the outside of our cells. They can help our cells stick, not always just to each other, but to other things that may come by. They're usually there for protection. They're also signal receptions. I like to think of them, they kind of look like big antennas on the outside of the cell, but our cells do have a glycocalyx. Our cells don't have cell walls, but some eukaryotic cells do. My only note, any eukaryotic cells are not made up of peptidoglycan. Those NAMs and NAGs that make up peptidoglycan in bacteria, that is specific for prokaryotic cells. Now, your cells, again, do not have cell walls, but various types of plants, some fungi, some algae do have cell walls. They are not made up of peptidoglycan, just other things. Our cells do have a cell membrane made up of those phospholipid bilayers. It's a selectively permeable membrane, allowing some things to come in, some things to get out. This is a little summary of what each of these do. Now, because I'm like, I'll go over some of them. The nucleus, again, is where we find all of the DNA. The nucleolus is where it makes that ribosomal RNA and some ribosomes. The endoplasmic reticulum, there's 2 of them. Well, the rough ER is there for making and transporting proteins. The smooth ER is mostly for lipid synthesis. The Golgi apparatus, that's there for packaging and shipping things out wherever they need to go. Lysosomes break things down. They've got enzymes to help break things down. Vacuoles are for storage. Mitochondria make an ATP, the mighty mitochondria. Some have chloroplasts, plants. Ribosomes for proteins. Prokaryotic cells have those too. And the cytoskeleton provide a lot of the structure and movement for the cell. And prokaryotic cells have those too. So a lot of these, the only ones that prokaryotic cells have. Prokaryotic cells have a cytoskeleton. Prokaryotic cells have a ribosome. Prokaryotic cells don't have any of these other things. They don't have a nucleus. They don't have a nucleolus. I mean, if you don't have this, you don't have this. They don't have ERs. They don't have the Golgi. They don't have lysosomes. They don't have vacuoles. They have other storage methods. They definitely don't have a mitochondria. Their ATP is made out on the cell membrane. And they don't have a chloroplast. So, a lot of this now is just going to go over all the different organelles that I just went over. So nucleus is where we find all of your DNA. Scooch ahead again, it does have that outer membrane. Way too complex for a prokaryotic cell. Mitosis. It has the rough ER and the smooth ER. Again, the rough ER is rough because it's got ribosomes all over it. Ribosomes help make proteins. Smooth ER for a lot of different lipid storage and synthesis. The Golgi apparatus, it receives things, it repackages them, and then it ships them out wherever they need to go. They I always think they look like little flattened pancakes there. They're always going to be hanging out next to the rough ER or the smooth ER. Just the vesicles moving things around. They're little taxi cabs of the cell. There you can see some of the vesicles. Lysosomes is that contains those enzymes that help break things down. They become very important for a lot of our white blood cells. If our white blood cells eat bacteria, well, they got to break them down so they can go eat some more. So those lysosomes and those enzymes help break down bacteria. Vacuoles, that's just storing things. Mitochondria make an ATP. Later we will talk about making of ATP and going through all of those processes. Which will be a review for some of you if you've already taken advanced A&P, or depending on when advanced A&P goes over it, might still be review for a lot of you. Otherwise, if it's not review, it's not review. But we're going to go over making of ATP in the mitochondria with the Krebs cycle and electron transport chain, all of that fun stuff. Chloroplasts, if some type of eukaryotic cell can do photosynthesis, like plants, they've got chloroplasts to do that. Ribosomes have found in both prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. The only big difference is that eukaryotic ribosomes are a little bigger, but they still function the same. They make proteins. Cytoskeleton helps move things around in the cell, helps the cell especially with its shape during cell division. I don't care about the genetics. A big thing though, viruses, I know it's comparing prokaryotic cells, missing a lot of stuff that eukaryotic cells have. Viruses don't have a lot of stuff, which is why they're not considered alive. This is just going over some of the relationships between eukaryotic cells when we organize them based on different kingdoms. And then it ends. So eukaryotic cells, again, this was just a little review. We don't spend a lot of time on eukaryotic cells. Most of this class we talk about are bacteria and prokaryotic cells. But eukaryotic cells, much more advanced than our simple prokaryotic cells that bacteria have.